Hi, everybody, and welcome to Rogersville Faith Assembly YouTube channel. If you're a returning member or this is your first time, whichever one it is, welcome. Everyone's welcome here, and we're just so happy to have you. Don't forget, before I start, hit that like button. That's a thumbs up. Subscribe, and if you want to comment, we appreciate that, and we'll respond back. All right, well, tonight we have a very, very exciting night. We are going to be learning a little bit more about two very special people, Mike and Jessica Paul. They are the founders of the Veteran Center here in Rogersville. And we're going to learn a little bit about the Veteran Center, but I think it's really important for you to get to know them a little bit better. You see, they have a remarkable story, and I believe it's one worth listening to. So don't you tune us out. Stay right where you're at, because I know you're going to be blessed by this one. Well, we're going to start with Jessica. Jessica, welcome.
Hello.
Hi. You seem so quiet. What's the matter?
A little nervous about my hick talk coming out.
No, nothing to be nervous. Just you and me, you know. Before we get to know about the Veteran Center, which you and your husband Mike had founded, we want to know a little bit about you.
Okay.
We're going to start out with the first question. You ready?
Mm-hmm.
I want to know when you met Jesus.
Actually, that was in 2018. So not that long ago.
Okay. Tell us a little bit about it. What happened?
Well, I was actually inside of my third treatment center for recovery. And I had been in the rooms of recovery for quite some years. I had learned about higher powers. I had been able to identify that there was things more powerful than I was. That's why I stayed in active addiction, was because I thought I was it. You know, the world revolved around me. And once I was able to identify that there was powers higher than me, then I can make that step on into finding my own faith.
So when you say powers higher, than you, what exactly?
Just two or more people is more powerful than I am.
Okay.
And therefore, whenever I went to my third treatment center, I had 5 years in recovery at the time, and I just didn't stop relapsing. Every single time that I got to a place where I got angry, upset, the God that I had created in the palm of my hand, I would just get rid of it, you know? I was able to, whenever I was in my treatment center, my last treatment center, I was dead set on, you didn't have to find a certain God. That you just, you just done whatever worked for you.
So you basically were your own God.
So a recovery pastor come and got me to talk to me.
Okay.
Imagine that. And he answered every question that I had concerning Jesus, and he was able to deliver me of all the doubts and worries and fears that I had. And before I left there, I got a Life Recovery Bible, and I read that Bible within 6 months.
Wow.
And by the time that the Bible was done, I was already saved.
Praise God. Now, for our viewers who may not understand what type of recovery you were going through, how about explaining? Tell a little bit. Actually, let's go right there. Let's tell a little bit. What was your life like up to this point?
Destruction, chaos, and degradation. I had attempted to find Jesus whenever I was 15 years old, and whenever I had went to some churches, I ended up going to a church that the guy who I went to church with tried to rape me. So in that moment, at 15, 16 years old, I was done. I wasn't trying anymore. I started drinking by 17 years old, and then it just led to one drug right after another until I was about 30 years old. And then that's whenever I started attempting to stay clean, but yet I couldn't stay clean because I didn't have God.
That's right. Couldn't do it by yourself. And I think that's the struggle that so many people have. There might be a viewer right now, struggling with that addiction. And it is, I'd imagine I never struggled with that addiction, but we all struggle with different things. It's like a ball and chain that you can't lose.
You make it your God.
Yeah. So the only answer to being free of this, looking back now,
I
was
give
knowing
the
Jesus.
same kind of passion that I had towards the drug every single day to Jesus today.
Oh, that's awesome.
It's the only
awesome.
way.
Yeah,
It's either I go forward or I go backwards.
right.
There is no in between. I don't stand still.
So you had the preacher, the minister, talk with you and clarified a lot of things about Jesus, and so take us from there.
From there, I was able to. I felt like I was on fire. I felt like Jesus was in the room. I mean, I ended up hearing from Michael, which I hadn't heard from since I was 15 years old. I'd held a resentment for 20 years. And since I'd found Jesus, I had no other choice but to be nice to him.
You had to let that go.
And unfortunately, he was homeless, strung out underneath a bridge. And he was a veteran on top of it. And I was raised in a veteran household. The veterans in my household struggled with their own addictions.
So you grew up in a veteran household.
Yes, ma'am.
Did you grow up hearing about the Lord?
No.
No. So that wasn't something.
I took myself to church.
And so where were you when you actually had that encounter with him? Because it's life-changing, undoubtedly.
It was in my living room.
In your living room. See,
Absolutely.
folks, you don't have to be in a church.
Absolutely.
Jesus will meet you when you're ready to meet him.
I asked him to write me a letter, and I wrote out a letter. I didn't even know what was going to be said in it. Yeah. And it was just beautiful. I still have that letter today. And it was like he was in the room with me.
Yeah.
It was beautiful.
He's present. He's alive. And I think that's when you really realize the reality of Jesus.
Absolutely.
You feel him. You know he's there with you. So now you said you hadn't spoken to Mike since you were 15, so y'all knew each other prior.
Yes, we were actually born in the same hospital by the same doctor within 48 hours of each other. So I'm technically the first girl he ever seen. So,
and you're going to be the last one too.
That's
right. Except for the baby.
Right.
The other guy's having a baby. Congratulations, by the way.
Thank you.
So let me ask you a question. So you told us a little bit about your life prior to Jesus, the addiction, the in and out, the struggles. Just put in
20 years.
20 years of it. What happened afterward? How did it change? How did you change?
Everything changed. I became a new person. I didn't know who I was before. I was a chameleon. It was whatever the person in the room wanted me to be.
Yeah.
And that's what I turned into.
That's what you turned into.
Yep.
And you found your identity because of him and through him.
Absolutely. And I couldn't see a future.
Yeah.
Like before, even with having my daughter, who's 15 today, I couldn't see a future. I attempted suicide several times, even after she was born. And today, within the last few years, I can see visions.
Oh, like prophetic visions.
Yes, and we're there. We're there, and we're going more places of the visions that I've seen. It's just staying to the path regardless of.
That's right.
It's going to be difficult, and it has been difficult. We've lived off a bag of change for 2 years. But all the promises that God's given us has come true.
Yeah.
And then I know there's more to be revealed.
Absolutely. He's not done with y'all.
Right.
And, when you said you, with the idea of committing suicide, he knew already, there's no time with God. He sees
He
the
stopped
future.
every time, and before I couldn't see where he was at in my life, but it's clear he was right there.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Mike, you're giving me the eyes over there. But before I get to you, Mike, Jessica, what would you like to tell our viewers if there's someone right now struggling with an addiction, whether it be drugs, whether it be alcohol, whether it be gambling, pornography, theft, whatever it is that they're struggling with right now?
We all have our struggles, no matter if it's a substance or not. It's identifying it and being able to come clean of it and asking God to help you each and every day, because every day it's a 24-hour daily reprieve. That's what we get from the moment we open our eyes to the moment that our head hits that pillow. And if you can abstain until your head hits that pillow, you've got another day one. And every single day is a miracle.
That's right. Amen. Amen. Before we get to Mike, Mike's sitting there eager. What is the one thing that you're most thankful for, what God did in your life?
Honestly, the genuine people in my life. The genuine people in my life who actually care. I had spent 20 years around people who only wanted me for something. Mm. And for me to just be able to give back and people just love me the way I am. I've never had people just love me the way I am. And today that the people show me the love of Jesus through them. Yeah.
And that's how it's supposed to be. And for those of you who are wondering, Mike and Jessica do attend Rogersville Faith Assembly with me and so many others, and so thankful to have them with us. And how did you find Faith Assembly?
That's a God story, too.
Okay, let's hear it. I love God stories.
So whenever I was just in recovery meetings that wasn't faith-based, there was a meeting in the Rogersville basement, or in the Faith Assembly basement of Narcotics Anonymous. And I was the area chair for that particular meeting for years. And then I guess somehow, some way, I just made my way upstairs.
And you haven't left since?
No.
Thank you. Thank you for not leaving either. God has a way of bringing us all together. Yep. Thank you so much. And we're going to get to more questions in regard to the center. But let's see. Mike. Hey, Mike. How are you?
Hello. How are you?
Good. You got your coffee with you?
Yeah.
All right. All right.
Calms me down.
Let's hear a little bit about you. And you can elaborate more on what Jessica had said in regard to how you actually first met at birth without realizing it.
Yeah, we were actually the only babies born that week, to my understanding. It was a very small town hospital. Yeah, so we wasn't born in a big city. We was born in a very small coal mining town.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, so we were the only two babies born that week. My mom actually used to have a photo of both of us laying side by side.
Really?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, my gosh, that's...
God had to put me here first, though.
He put you here first?
Yeah, he put me here
first. She had to
first.
prepare the way.
So you're older, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I pick on her about that one, too.
I turned 40 last, and he let me know for 2 days that I was 40.
Oh, I'd say.
Oh, he did.
You know,
Billy Ray was part of that, too, I'm pretty sure.
Tell us a little bit. I know your background is with the military.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us, let's start. If you want to start there, if you want to start somewhere else, whatever you'd like.
I'll start with where I found Jesus.
You want to start with, okay.
I found Jesus at a very young age. I want people to understand that. I grew up in an extreme holiness church. My grandfather raised me, and he was the pastor of this church. My papa had pastored for over 60 years when he died. I was forced every time that the doors opened, I had to be in church. It was regardless of what sports was going on or whatever I wanted to do as a kid, I was made to be at church. So in turn, you could see that can build a resentment in a child's eyes.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
And that's truthful, and you're right.
Exactly. So that kind of pushed me out of the church. By the time me and her was 15 years old, I was already smoking weed and drinking moonshine and racing motorcycles down the valley to see how fast we could go and stuff like that.
So you grew up in the same town?
We grew up about 20 minutes apart. She was on one side of the river, I was on the other side of the river. So.
And then you all met about 15?
Yes, ma'am. My cousin Carla actually brought her to my papa's church.
When did you find out that she's the baby that was born the same time you were?
It wasn't until after we had split up and I had been deployed and everything. I was at my mom's house, and we were going through pictures.
So years later, you had no idea about this?
I had no idea my mom even had a picture of that.
Wow. So you're 15, you're partying hard.
Yeah.
You meet Jessica. Jessica, you're partying at this time?
I was a good girl.
You were a good girl.
She was actually a very good girl at this time.
Okay.
Yep.
And
I did what teenage boys did.
The boys did that, and the girls didn't. That was how it was.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So take it from there. Keep going. Let's hear more.
a lot happened to me at a very young age. My mom and my daddy gave me up for adoption and stuff, and had some molestation issues go on. So I had a very scarred childhood. I felt very unwanted, very unneeded.
Yeah.
And I didn't really start acting out incredibly bad until I watched one of my friends get killed in front of me.
Oh my goodness.
Whenever that happened, me and Jessica were actually together at that time. And shortly after he was buried, I moved in the middle of the night and just disappeared.
That was the resentment.
So you had no idea.
He just left.
Just disappeared.
She had no clue.
Never called, nothing.
How long were you gone for?
Long enough for me to join the military, be deployed, and come back from war.
Thank you for your service, Mike. Appreciate that. Thank you. So I'm sure you've seen a lot being deployed. Where did they actually deploy you to?
I was in Iraq.
Iraq. Phew. That's hard, I guarantee. And how was your journey at this? All right, so you've already, because you said you met Jesus at a young age.
Yes, ma'am.
So how old about were you?
I was actually 7 years old
You
when
were
I got
7.
saved. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
Saved and baptized by 7.
So you knew him at this time, and your life continues on a road that I'm sure that.
I had actually got called to preach by the time I was 13.
So you ran
But
from
it
it.
terrified me. As a child, it terrified me. I got filled with the Spirit, and it scared me to death, because I knew I'd seen it all through church, people speaking in tongues, Papa leaving people slain everywhere, and that was normal growing up.
Right.
Shouting, screaming, hollering, people running everywhere, seeing God's miracles, people being healed. That was normal back then.
Right.
But at the same time, it scared me to death. And I don't know why it did, but it did. And a lot of it was because the devil knew what plan God had for me.
That's right.
You know what
Absolutely.
I'm saying? God knew his plan for me and Jessica long before we were even born.
That's right.
So the devil fought me hard. He threw obstacle after obstacle after obstacle in my face. I started drinking really heavy right after Chris died, and I moved to Ohio with my mom. I got to where I started drinking pretty heavy. Wasn't really using drugs, just alcohol.
Right.
By the time I turned 17, 9/11 happened. Well, 18. We was 18 when 9/11 happened. I immediately dropped out of high school and joined the military. I turned 21 in Iraq. On my 21st birthday, I got hit with an IED. So in all that, I ain't going to go into none of that, but I made it home.
Right.
When I first came home, I didn't know why I made it home. I had a lot of survivor's guilt. It was tough.
Yeah.
I came home to a divorce, no money in the bank.
So you had gotten married.
Yes, ma'am. I'd had a couple children while I was in the military. Came home to divorce papers and my bank account empty. So I had nothing to show for my deployment at all. I had to go to work pretty much immediately. Some things that happened while I was in Iraq that I had to stand up for.
Right.
By the time all that was said and done, the military had kind of deemed me mentally unfit. You know what I mean? Yeah. Due to the TBIs I'd had and stuff, I couldn't retain information. Yeah. So I had to deal with all that, and coming home wasn't easy. Coming home was not easy for me.
It's like a totally different world, isn't it?
I hated people.
Oh.
And I hate to say that, but at that time, I hated people. I trusted no one. I was trained by the military to do what I was trained to do, and I didn't know what to do with my life when I came out. I tried to be a cop. I tried this. I tried that. I rode in rodeo for a while, and that's where I got on hard drugs. That's where my life went downhill in a spiral.
When you got into the rodeo.
Yes, ma'am.
And so how long did you continue this type of lifestyle, Mike?
I rode in the rodeo for probably off and on for 15 years.
Wow, that's a long time. That's a long time. And Jessica, at this time, you're still not in the picture, right?
No.
Not yet.
She came in at the very tail end of my active addiction. Jessica found me at my worst.
And let our viewers know, when you say at your worst, I don't know if people really understand.
I didn't have anything. I was, if Jessica wasn't dropping me off a McDouble, me and my dog both was hungry. I had clothes in a bag, and that was all that I owned.
And here
Bag
you are,
full.
a man who served our country, and this is the situation you're in.
I had put myself in that
Yeah.
situation.
But I mean, still, regardless, here you are in this situation.
I had pushed everybody away from me. I had made everybody not trust me no more. I burned a lot of bridges that I had to mend once I got clean, you know. So
And it's a little bit different with Jessica when she first met the Lord, because, you know, she was a little bit older where you were young. When did things start changing with your relationship with Jesus?
that wasn't until after Jessica came back in my life. The first night that me and Jessica talked again, I had been diagnosed with stage 4 glioblastoma,
What is that?
brain cancer.
Oh, gosh.
I had a 15% chance of survival. So in my mindset, I was going to go out like a rock star. And those were my exact words that I told her, you know. And she said, "Don't you know who Jesus is?" Those were her exact words. And the reason that she said that, she said, "Don't you know who raised you?" She said, "Pull your pants up and get some Actrite on and let's get you straightened out." And by golly, if that ain't what we did. And she never left my side, no matter how crazy I've been. And let me tell y'all something. I'm not an easy person to get
Oh,
along
no, I don't
with.
believe that.
I'm not. It took me a long time to get over that military attitude.
Yeah.
It took me a long time to get over that in your face, yell at you, talk down to you.
The first year of waking up from flashbacks and starting to have clarity was real rough.
For the first year.
Yes, the first year.
So what did you think when she's telling this to you? What did you think?
I was crazy. I knew I was. I had a lot of underlying issues that I refused to look at because it was too painful. And when those underlying issues are in there, they make you toxic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When you're constantly carrying around all that baggage that you're afraid to open up, it's making you toxic, and it's harming everybody around you, whether you see it or not. That's what's really happening. And it wasn't until my sponsor told me that I acted out in a horrible way. I broke my wife's heart, and I had to pay for that. I had to really look at myself then, because my job's not to hurt her. My job is to protect her and love her with all of my heart. And I didn't do that. I let her down, and it wasn't until I made an amends with God that everything completely changed.
Let everybody, how did that transpire? How did that happen?
Jessica took me to a church called Pleasant Point Missionary Baptist Church. And there was this preacher in there named Ronnie Rawson. And he was up in the middle of church just preaching. I mean, just preaching the paint off the walls. And Ronnie walked up to me and he hugged me. And he kept hugging me. And he kept hugging me. And I'm like, okay, this is getting kind of weird. You know, this is going a little overboard on the hug thing, you know, because I wasn't used to that.
Yeah.
And he said, "I'm sorry, but you feel so good. Can I hug you a few more minutes longer?" And it wasn't until that that I realized that God was still with me, because I'd been questioning him all this time. God, why did you let me live through what I've lived through, to have to continue going through what I'm going through, to have to continue going through this pain? But see, through pain, there's growth.
That's right.
And at that time, I didn't realize what God was actually preparing me to do. Because he knew that the job that he was going to have for me, I was going to have to be stand up, and I was going to have to be tough. And I was going to have to know how to carry myself and how to carry other people too. Because sometimes being a leader isn't just about telling people what to do. Sometimes being a leader is helping people up and walking with them.
So yeah, that depicts a true leader, a good leader.
Yes, ma'am.
So then what happens?
Well, after Ronnie met me, it was after church. He looked at me and he said, "You're a preacher." And I'd never told anybody but my papa that I'd been called to preach. Never. There's only been one other person that's ever told me that, and that was the man that's sitting behind you right now.
Our pastor, Billy Ray Courtney.
The day he met me, he hugged me and told me I was a preacher. I don't know. I don't call myself necessarily a preacher. I'm just somebody that likes to share what God can actually do in your life. I don't have nothing to give anybody but my testimony.
That's the biggest gift you can give
That's
somebody.
all I have.
That's the biggest
And I don't
gift.
mind sharing my testimony with anyone. I don't mind. You have to share the dirt
That's right.
where you came from in
That's
order
right.
for people to actually get
That's
it, because
right.
you can't just stand up there and say, you need to do this and you need to do that, unless you've actually walked that walk.
Amen. Amen.
It's very hard for people to get it if you haven't been there.
That's right. That's right. I mean, what are they going to see from a shiny object that they thought was always shiny? You need to see the dirt where it was at one point. Absolutely, I agree. I agree 100%. So I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Oh, no, you're good.
So all right. So you're at this church, and he tells you this.
Yeah.
Now, Jessica, you're with him.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Absolutely. Me and-
February 2nd, 2021.
Yes, you.
Do you want to go ahead and tell her what happened outside of church? Because that's where you came into that story, actually, of us getting married and
Oh.
talking to Ronnie
Yeah, because
outside.
whenever he had been unfaithful, I knew what God had showed me, that he was who he was. Number one, he was raised by a Pentecostal pastor. Number two, he was trained by the military. If that doesn't make for a good man, I don't know what does.
That's right.
So I needed that extra confirmation from Ronnie whenever he hugged him and said, "I can feel what's inside of you." And then finally I was like, okay, so I'm not just crazy. And then therefore that's whenever I started working on myself, because I had a lot of feelings that I had to feel. And I had to start learning about forgiveness for him. You know, I started viewing him as a boy that didn't know no better, you know. And then by the time that July rolled around from that February, we ended up getting married
Okay.
and starting our life.
That's awesome.
We even got baptized together.
Yes.
You got that.
The day
Hand in
before our
hand.
wedding, hand in hand, we got baptized together.
And that's the way to
We
do
wanted to
things.
start
Completely clean.
things
Yes.
completely new.
Now, at this point, are you still struggling? Or are you still battling with
No,
addiction?
ma'am. By
so
this
it's gone
time,
at this time.
by this time, I had been clean over a year. By the time we got
wonderful.
married, I had been clean actually a year and a half. February 14th is my clean date. 12th, Kylie's birthday. So, so yeah, I'd been clean a little over a year and a half. I'd been preaching for a little while at Pleasant Point Church. I'd go in and preach on Sundays quite a bit. And then one of the biggest heartbreaks, I thought was one of the biggest heartbreaks that I had to deal with clean. Ronnie passed away on us, literally right after we got married. Ronnie was supposed to preach our wedding and everything, and he couldn't because he was in ICU at that time. So he watched the wedding live on Facebook. We made sure we put it on Facebook Live just for him. And then he gave Jessica a hard time for how long it took for her to get out there to walk down the aisle. Apparently everybody had to sit for an hour and a half. I don't know. But
Our wedding was beautiful.
Our
It was a
wedding
recovery
absolutely
wedding.
amazing.
It had all nothing but recovery people. His cousins who had introduced me to him at 15 was the ones who opened the door, and none of that was planned.
Oh,
My childhood
wow.
best friend was there. Everything that I had when me and her were together. So
Oh my gosh.
it was a big full circle thing.
Yeah, it is, and that's how God works. It's
Yes.
full circle.
Absolutely.
Let me ask you, if you would, if there's somebody right now. I mean, I see. This is the first time, folks. I've not heard, Mike. I've not heard your testimony. This is the first time I've heard either of your stories. Which sometimes it takes, and I don't lose words that easily, but I'm a little bit out of a loss for words. But if there's somebody out there right now that is struggling and think that nobody knows what they're going through or don't know what step to take next, or the next step might be not wanting to live anymore, what words would you like to tell them right now?
There is help out there.
Tell them right there at the camp.
There is people that understand. There is people that, believe it or not, have been there that work specifically in that area. That's why I work in the suicide department. Jessica runs the recovery side. I run the suicide prevention side. I've had 9 failed suicide attempts.
Yourself?
Myself. That ain't counting me trying to kill myself by riding in the rodeo. That's why I rode in the rodeo for so long. It wasn't for clout. It wasn't for glamour. It wasn't for the money. I was looking for a cool way to go out. So I get the suicidal thoughts and ideation. And there's other people out there that do too. You've just got to overcome that fear of, oh my God, if I go in and tell them that I'm suicidal, well, they're going to lock me up in a padded room somewhere. So be it. At least you're going to be alive. And I'm sure your family would much rather have you alive in a padded room for 48 hours than to have you dead.
That's right.
Because you are harming more people than you know when you take your life. Yeah. No matter how life is painful. Trust me, I know. Life is very painful. But it gets better. Things change. Problems go away.
God moves mountains.
Life will go on.
Yeah.
Turn to Him, and He'll give you the peace that you need.
That's right. Amen. Amen. Wow, this is amazing. So now that we know a little bit about your backgrounds, and thank you for sharing that, I can kind of see, but I don't know for sure, how this all moves into the Veterans Center here in Rogersville. So why don't you just take us down that road now?
So it had been mine and one of my battle buddies' dreams to start something to be able to help the veterans that are coming home. Because there was nothing whenever me and him came home. I had nowhere to turn to. I had nobody that I could turn to, or anybody that I thought would even understand on how to help me to get what I needed, because I didn't even know what I needed.
Right.
So me and him had discussed it, and we were going to do more along the lines of equine therapy.
Which is?
Using horses for
therapy. Equine therapy.
Yes,
oh, yeah, wonderful.
So we were going to do along the lines of that. However, addiction took him out before we could even get the ball rolling on that. So this was a dream of mine and his that I kind of wanted to do, and the opportunity just landed in mine and Jessica's lap one day. We wasn't even planning on doing, trust me, we wasn't even planning on doing nothing like this.
How many years ago was this now?
2.5.
Okay, so it's still it's still in its new stages.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so 2.5 years ago,
Yes,
you
ma'am.
get this opportunity.
We got this opportunity to open our own center whenever we heard about the other center shutting down. So we decided to open our own, and because we wanted the vets to have a place.
We seen the vision that
We
God
seen
laid
what
out
it
in
could
front
be.
of us.
We seen what it could be, without a doubt. I mean, we both had a dream.
Did you?
And we both have the same dream. Like, it's all there.
Now you're going to have to share this dream. You can't leave us hanging like that.
Everybody's got to be held hanging.
Oh.
I can't share our secrets. No, I want to have, eventually I want to have a ranch. I want to be able to have equine therapy. I want to be able to have tiny homes for the veterans to live in if they're homeless, or places where people want to come and go camping, have fishing ponds. Us as veterans, I have a problem myself with going out in public. I have a problem myself with going to places like Gatlinburg. There's just too many people for me.
I've heard that before. Yeah.
That's why veterans isolate. Isolation is a core issue of 90% of the veterans' problems.
Is it even isolation from other veterans, or is it just isolation
It's
from...
isolation, period.
Period. Okay.
It's isolation from your family, your job, everything. I know right after I got clean, it was hard for me to get motivated to get out of the house because I didn't want to be around people. I was paranoid all the time. I didn't have a weapon on me, so I felt unprotected. I didn't have a battle buddy with me that I trusted. There was just so many things I had to deal with when I first got clean because I didn't deal with it when I initially came home.
You just harbored it and just carried it.
When you sit and you just keep covering a wound up, it's not going to heal itself. You got to let a little air get to it for it to heal right. So that was my mistake because I didn't want to face it. By us not facing our problems and asking God, okay, here's my problem. I know that this solution over here is me getting drunk or me harming myself. What you have to do in recovery is you have to take those options completely off the table. Don't even look at those options because they're not there. In recovery, we're solution-based. Mm-hmm. We have to sit and look at the solution. So that's how I deal with my life today. I look at my solutions and I pick the best one that's going to help me with my problem. And that's how I've learned to live life. And 9 times out of 10, it's God. Right. It's every time. Yeah. You know what I mean? But I have to talk to him about it before I make my decisions.
Which I think, veteran or just a regular person, I think that's what we all need to do. Exactly. Is to always, and even if it's something small, we always need to seek him first.
Absolutely.
So 2.5 years ago, you get this opportunity, and you open up. Now, neither of you had any experience in this.
I had ran a couple businesses before, but never nothing like this. Mm-hmm. No, I'd ran just a couple small businesses, lawn care and landscaping or pressure washing or something like that. This right here was a totally different ballgame. This, me and her both had to really learn the ins and outs of nonprofit. There was a lot of mistakes made. There was a lot of painful growth made. There was a lot of sacrifices that we had to make along the way for this center. My wife worked a full-time job, 40, 50 hours a week on top of helping me run the Veterans Center for free. Yeah. Neither one of us drew a paycheck from there. The center was open 5 and 6 days a week, 8 hours a day.
Is it still open?
Absolutely.
Like that?
9 to 5, Monday through Friday.
Okay. And it's open to veterans?
To veterans and their families.
Okay.
And
now
there is a trickle-down effect.
What do you mean?
The family inside of their household is affected by the veteran, and the veteran is affected by the family member. So therefore, we do both the veteran and their family member so that the household can be whole as well.
Okay, and healed. Mm-hmm. Now, so what type of programs do you have with the center? Tell us a little bit now about the center, what it offers, things like that.
You want to go ahead? You can tell about the recovery stuff.
The center is a 5,000 square foot facility. We have a leather working shop. We have an art class. We actually have 2 art classes by 2 retired art teachers. We have a full-size gym. We have a full-size kitchen. We have washer and dryer, shower for the homeless veteran or anyone who wants to use it. But we also have our recovery programs. We have traditional, faith-based, smart recovery. It doesn't matter where they want to start because like me, I had to start somewhere. Right. So we're not going to try to push one specific type on them. We're going to let them take their own baby steps.
That's awesome. And you also, so they can come in there. Now, do they have to be in a program to be able to use the center?
No, ma'am. All you have to do is be a veteran. Bring in your military ID or DD-214. We'll have a little card for you to fill out. That way we have a way for emergency contracts or whatever if something happens to you while you're at the center. But there's no dues, and it's 100% free for veterans and their families.
This area of Hawkins County, what is it like? Do we have a veteran problem? You have the center that aids them and helps them. Are there a lot of veterans that just basically are they homeless? Are there one? I mean, what is the situation with our veterans? I think a lot of people, myself included. I mean, these are men and women that have served our country, and to understand what they're going through or what their situation is, I don't think we really can fathom that. Do you know what I mean? Whereas that's why this is wonderful that you're presenting this, because you as a veteran know firsthand what's going on, and now having the center, both of you can really get a grasp of things. How is it in our area right now with veterans, or is there any ways that people can help if they want to? I guess is where I'm going with that.
In the Rogersville area, there aren't a whole lot of homeless veterans, but necessarily here in town. But there are homeless veterans everywhere. Now, are all of them homeless due to not having money or anything? No.
No. Okay.
Some of those guys are homeless because they choose to be. It took me a really long time to get used to sleeping in a house.
How many years were you homeless?
Right at 2.
2 years.
I couch surfed and did what I had to do.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it the inability to be able to adjust back, or is it the demons that people carry because of the horrific things that I'm sure that you all have seen, especially being deployed?
I had a lot of demons that I kept dulled, that I kept hidden away. And I thought that I was keeping them hidden away. However, when I would use, they would come out. And it just depended on who was around, on who got the blunt end of it, Am I a violent person today? No. But was I a very violent person at one point in time in my life? Yes, I was. But that was because I didn't have the peace in my heart that I needed. I had nothing but hatred and anger. Yeah. And when you're full of hatred and anger, it's going to spew out all over everybody, just like a volcano, so.
Do you contribute the peace and the lack of that anger spewing out? Do you contribute that to getting your relationship back with the Lord?
That, yes, I do. However, I do have to take care of my mental health. Yeah. I have to take the meds that the doctor gives me, because I went on the mental med merry-go-round for a long time. And I think that we all need help sometimes, whether it's from God or if it's from a doctor. I had to do something about the brain damage that I had. It had caused a lot of issues, underlying issues. But if it hadn't been for God, I wouldn't be alive.
Because now you are cancer-free?
I am cancer-free.
Praise God for that.
I have been in remission now for 4 years.
Wonderful. And that, I believe, is only God.
Absolutely, 100%. The doctors, it blew their minds.
I want to ask you the final question. What is the one thing that comes to your memory where you can say undoubtedly, it was the hand of God?
The first 2 years of running that center.
Absolutely.
We wouldn't have made it. There's no way. We didn't have any. We had no financial support at all until it came to this church, actually.
Absolutely.
Our electricity would have been turned off and everything long ago if it wasn't for the church, if it wasn't for God having money show up in our mailbox. It's one of them things where
right
you
when
say,
we needed it.
"Oh, God, if you're really there, then show me a check in the mailbox," and He would.
Right
Yes.
when we needed it. Right when we needed it.
God has a way of. I think that He does it just to laugh at me because I have these ultimatums.
He has a sense of humor, this, right, Jess?
And this stuff
He
wouldn't,
does.
This stuff wouldn't be possible. At least that's what you think, and then He makes it possible.
That's right. That's right. Amen. Well, this has been a wonderful, wonderful evening spent with both of you. I want to thank you personally, and I want you to let the viewers know the centers, where they're located, how they can contact you. There might be a veteran that didn't know of it and that would like to reach out to you. There may be people out there that would like to help in other ways. So why don't you let our viewers know the address and the contact information?
We are Veterans Center of East Tennessee. We're located at 105 West McKinney Avenue in Rogersville, Tennessee.
That's it, folks. You heard it here. Mike, Jessica, it's been awesome.
Thank you.
Thank y'all so much for having us.
Thank you so much. Thank you,
Thank you.
again for your service to our
Thank you,
country.
ma'am.
Thank you for your testimonies. Thank you for the love that you have for each other that I sit here and just watch, and for the Lord. And thank you for what you're doing for the veterans of
Thank you.
Hawkins County. Sincerely appreciate you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And they're having a baby, so we want to.
We are.
Surely.
Bless that baby and y'all, and I know he has. So thank
Yes,
you
he has.
again, and thank you for being part of Faith Assembly.
Thank y'all so much for having us.
Well, friends, thank you so much for tuning in with me today and with Mike and Jessica from the Veterans Center here in Rogersville. It's truly been an honor to be here with them. I hope that it blessed your hearts. Don't forget, if you want to reach out to them, you know how to do that. And yes, like this video, subscribe to this channel. And if you have a comment that you'd like to leave, please do so. We would love to hear from you. Thank you again. I'm Monica with Rogersville Faith Assembly, wishing you all a blessed day. But even more so, I'm asking you, be a blessing to someone today. I love you, and God bless you.